Hello guys, welcome to the third and last video series where we are analyzing Hadrien Feraud's solo over the tune Strasbourg St Denis. Today we will take a look into his use of target, approach notes and enclosures, and we will also do a small recap and do the main takeaways of all the things we learned in these three videos. So what is a target note? A target note is what the name already suggests, a note that you're targeting, that you're going to resolve to, or a note that you're going to land to. More often than not, target notes are chord tones and they are used to indicate the underlying harmony. They can help give your solo a sense of direction. So let's look at an example. If I play an A flat major 7 chord, my solo line could target any of those four notes in the chord to enforce the harmony under it. So I could target the root, the A flat, a C could be a target note, which is the third, E flat, which is the fifth, and G, that's the major 7th. So how do we target a certain note? Well, we do that by using something called approach notes and enclosures. Now, approach notes are notes that are approaching our targeted note, and it can be from one or the other direction. It can be just one note or two notes, and they're either diatonic or chromatic. And with enclosures, it's usually two or more notes that are surrounding our note. So they're above and below our note. So if we go back to our A flat major 7, and we know that C natural is our target note, we can play an approach note from above. D flat C. In this case, D flat C is diatonic as well as chromatic approach note because it's a semitone apart. We can play from below. B flat C, which would be a diatonic from below. We could play B natural to C. This has some more tension to it, and this is a chromatic approach note from below. We can combine these two and we get two chromatic approach notes. We could also play two notes above, E flat, D flat, C. And when we talk about enclosures, we surround the note. So D flat, B natural, C. And I can do in many different variations. I can play three notes, I can play, I could do, or for example. So as you can see, there are many different ways to land on a targeted note. Now let's look into our transcription and see how Hadrien Feraud is using this technique. So our first example will be here on bar 6 to 7. And we're playing from this E flat 7 to A flat major. So we are dominant resolving it to the 1. So that's already something that we will see happening a lot and repeating. And basically we need to first look at the red note. The red notes are the target notes and the blue notes are these approach or enclosure notes. And our first example red note is the target note is this C in A flat major. And the notes that are played before, so these approach and enclosure notes are, so these are the blue and the red note together. So we play two approach notes above and then two chromatical to this C. And this whole line starts like this. Up to this point, to this C. Our next example is in bar 9, and you can see we are targeting this D flat, so the minor third of the B flat minor 7 chord. And we're playing two enclosure notes below and above, so C, E flat, D. And this line up to this point goes like this. Right, you can really hear there at the end how he plays around this targeted note. Our next example is in bar 10, and it's played over D flat major 7. But if you remember from before, this line here moves to this F altered sound. So our target note is this A, which is the third of the F7 chord. So he's like superimposing harmony, this F7 that will then resolve to this B flat minor. And you see this A natural as the target, and we play this enclosure note, just B flat, A flat, A. This line till here is, right? And then we get this these blue approach notes, chromatic, E, targeting this F in B flat minor 7. So that's there from bar 10 till bar 11. And immediately after that we have an approach note to this D flat, again to this minor third of the B flat minor 7. One thing to mention as well, as you probably noticed, all these target notes there on the downbeat, so they're the resolving points for these lines, right? This is where we're heading. So almost always, like in this, well, in his solos they are like this on the heavier beats, but in jazz you can have them also on the upbeats as well. So our next example is bar 14 to 15, and it's again very similar thing. We play from the dominant to the 1, so again like dominant resolving to chord. So, and we have, again, we're targeting this C, so the third in the major 7 chord, but our line is a little bit different. We play this, right? So it's a little bit different. Before we had, so he's just using another way to target the same note here. And this line is something that he likes to use a lot, like he plays, or anyway, yeah, that's here on the A flat major. And then our last example that we're going to look at is this from 16 to 17, and he's just targeting again this D flat, or this D flat down here, again the minor third of the B flat minor 7, and he's playing this enclosure notes C, E flat, D flat at the end of his line to finish off on the heavy beat down there. So these are the target and approach notes in his solo. They're not all there. You could make argument there's some other places where he's using them, but these are the most obvious ones and typical ones, and really it's really and they really showcase how he does it, right? He resolves on the heavy beat and on the chord tone, usually on these thirds, C of the A flat major or D flat of B flat minor 7 or the A of the F7. We could see he's using these 4 approach notes or enclosure, or just 2. He likes to use these 4 or sometimes 3, like just different ways to play to that note. He's just decorating the line in a different kinds of way. We could see firsthand on how Hadrien is using this technique to give his lines resolution points and direction. I advise you that always when you hear new concepts like this, that you go straight to the source and see for yourself how your favorite musicians are using them. So try to question everything that you hear and find proof for yourself. Now let's do a quick recap of all the things we did in these 3 videos. So in the first video we checked phrases, and the main takeaways from this is to start simple. So we could see how he starts with a really nice simple phrase which gives him enough headspace to develop his solo, right? The second one would be the development itself. You want to start simple, you don't want to start somewhere else, and you want to make your solo interesting, right? Because solo is about telling a story, and you want to have this kind of like dramatical development and the resolution point, right? Another thing would be playing over the bar line. So you don't want to play very like square, like from this line to this line, and you want to play over it to make it more interesting and coherent, and you want to play around with resolving to a chord that does not happen yet, or stretching the resolution of the chord, so anticipating and suspending harmony actually. In the second video we talked about scales, and from here we can learn, just see for yourself how important just basic major scale is, right? The tune was written in A flat major scale, and 80% of the notes used in Hadrien's solo was just in that key. So that just goes to show you how important it is to practice your major scale. Second one was the implementation of melodic minor and harmonic minor scales. Hadrien is a big fan of those sounds, and this is a great example for you to go explore and to see how to use these scales, and just to get used of the sound of them and where to use them. The third thing would be scales for creating tension and release points. And he really likes to do that, where he goes from the tonality, so from A flat major key, moving into another key, coming back to it. So creating lines that make the listener want to listen to his lines. Another one would be connecting the scales, just his way of connecting the scales. One is with approach notes, but another one is that often he plays lines that the notes, it's hard to draw a conclusion where exactly a new scale starts and the old one ends. So often these notes can belong to both scales, and this makes really smooth transitions between them. And in today's video we talked about target and approach notes, and again it comes back to the connecting lines, so making them more coherent. Another thing would be to enforce the harmony that's under it, right? So if you play some guide notes like thirds in a major 7 chord, it just enforces the harmony. It can also be used as pivot points, something I didn't mention yet. He likes to play a line, and when he plays these approach notes, targets this note, for him it's a turning point to start ascending line, right? If he was descending, that's the point where he descends. If he was descending, that's the point where he ascends, and the other way around. An important thing to mention is that in these 3 videos I only scratched the surface. I talked about some things that he's using, like the scales, his phrases, target and approach notes, but I didn't dive deeper into these topics, and I'm leaving that to you to do so, right? I don't like to tell people how to practice something. I like to show you the options and the methods, and it's up to you to go further and explore and to actually question what I say. Don't just believe everything I say or anyone else on YouTube says. It's good to learn new things, but always take them with a grain of salt, and question them and test them and try them. Like I said, go to the source and see for yourself what's there. So this concludes our Hadrien Feraud's solo analysis. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some useful information out of it. If you have further questions, you can write them in the comment section. I'm also available for private lessons, so if you're interested, you can write me an email. As usual, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel for more, and I'll see you next time.